Wednesday, April 20, what is it? 2, April 22nd. We are live. Welcome back to the Global Financial Reset, Surviving and Thriving the Transition. The reason I fumble on the date is because I'm half a day ahead of you. I'm looking at my calendar. It's the 23rd. But for us live here in America, it's the 22nd. And there are folks listening all over the world. So whatever time it is, thanks for joining us. Welcome back to the Global Financial Reset, Surviving and Thriving the Transition. Powerful statements if you think that through. Joining me today in just a moment is Will Barney and Bill Armour. For those of us struggling, this is an announcement. For those of us struggling to get by, which is probably lion's share of America right now and around the world, let's be grateful for what we do have. But for those of us struggling to get by with little or no financial assets whatsoever to protect or invest, the education in every one of these GFR episodes and the wealthcoachuniversity.com, you will benefit from regardless of your financial position, because the changes and things that are taking place will affect everyone. There's going to be continued pain and some severe pain later, but there's going to be massive relief coming. So please, if you do not have investable assets, continue to tune in. So anyway, that's a quick announcement there. Certainly those that have some assets to protect, this is the broadcast that you want to tune into. I'd like to make a quick announcement. Rob Cunningham, Captain Rob Cunningham, is joining us in the JMC Broadcasting monthly Patriot Q&A Power Hour live in our private Zoom room for the sole purpose of answering your questions for one solid hour. I'm your host, and Captain Rob Cunningham is our featured esteemed guest in the Patriot Q&A Power Hour, April 30th, 8 p.m. Eastern. Mark your calendars. Now, how do you join? It's a premium feature. Go to jmcbroadcasting.com, click on Premium Portal, and see if this is something that works for you. And of course, 99% of everything we produce outside of Premium Portal content, everything is free to the public. We have a free subscription as well. All right, real quickly here, 5-star book on Amazon.com. My book, The Global Financial Reset. Folks, it's a quick read, under 100 pages. It's really a manual summarizing everything that you see on the wealthcoachuniversity.com website and what we cover each and every week here. Systems, roadmap, steps, actions, and resources to get out of the system during this transition. Saving America and protecting your wealth are not spectator sports. It requires effort and due diligence and action on your part. Action changes things. So it's time. Visit Amazon.com, sadly, but that's the easiest and best place to get it. Visit Amazon.com and jmcbroadcasting.com and pick up a copy of your book today. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on. The Great Reset of the Great Reset. The Davos illusion is breaking. The so-called Great Reset is being reset, but not by Schwab, by President Trump and team. The reset that was never ours. For years, the elites promised a new order. Sovereignty dead, nations erased. Citizens ruled by unelected bodies hiding behind sustainability and equity. It was never about saving the planet. It was about destroying independence, enforcing obedience, and conditioning humanity through endless crises. You know, you've heard all about the 15-minute cities and you shall eat the bugs, right? All right, so look at this character on the screen. Their plan exposed. The Great Reset meant centralized global control, shutting down industries under carbon neutrality, corporate tech dominance over nations, crisis cycles to break populations. It was never inclusion, it was elimination. But President Trump's counter reset. What a better image to be looking at. And this man's taking no prisoners today. President Trump flipped the script. His reset is the opposite. National control, not global governance. Reindustrialization, not managed decline. Trade realism, not surrender. Energy dominance, which we'll be talking about with Will Barney in just a moment, not demonization. Currency sovereignty, not central bank digital currencies. It's not reform. It's a sledgehammer. President Trump and team are resetting the entire global system. So the economic shockwaves, the media calls it instability. Wrong. It's correction. Offshoring, open borders, anti-growth policies are being dismantled. Friction isn't failure, it's fuel. This reset is production over tokens, freedom over obedience, loyalty over submission. So, why they fear it? Well, the globalists had one weapon: inevitability, to keep you scared, convince you no alternative exists. President Trump shattered that lie. Now their empire looks brittle. Davos depends on obedience. This reset depends upon freedom. That's why they censor you. That's why they attack you, because this is bigger than President Trump. It is a worldwide shift and movement. This is war. Every energy law that strangles independence, every tech platform that silences truth, every treaty that overrides sovereignty. This is the battlefield, and you and I are on it. Trump is not negotiating, he's dismantling. With President Donald J. Trump, Dan Scavino, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent talking about eliminating the income tax, the dismantling of the Federal Reserve and the IRS, and the issuance of a new asset-backed currency, eventually bringing us to a stable coin in the QFS, it is clear that great change is indeed underway. Take a look at this image, published by the Treasury Department, March 26th, titled, Treasury announces President Trump's signature to appear on future U.S. paper currencies. So that's a nice calm. It's also a nice step. It's just a matter of time before the Federal Reserve note, our dollar today, the money is debt fiat currency money, that money and system will be replaced, and an asset-backed U.S. dollar, per the U.S. Constitution, will have President Donald J. Trump's signature on it. And that begins the shift. So in conclusion, the Great Reset has failed. The real reset is rising, stronger and freer and unstoppable. It's not politics. This is a counter-revolution. This is the Great Reset of the Great Reset. Now, before we get into this broadcast, since we cover a lot of financial information, here's a disclaimer for the record. The information provided by me and my guests is for educational purposes only and is not to be considered as specific investment, tax, nor legal advice. You are encouraged to do your own research and consult your financial, legal, and tax professionals. And I provided a tool to help you with that vetting process. And that is at wealthcoachuniversity.com. Scroll down a bit, you'll see a little blue tab, says Advisor Scorecard. You'll be very happy you clicked on it, downloaded it, and or read it. 10 steps to arm you out there in the Wall Street's wild, wild west. All right. So having said that, let's bring on Will Barney. Will brings over 19 years of experience in the banking sector, where he has developed a strong specialization in structuring funding for large-scale commercial projects on a global scale, which includes humanitarian assistance for those with humanitarian projects. You can learn more about Will Barney by visiting jmcbroadcasting.com. Click on Contributors tab on the navigation bar, and you will see the variety of contributors to this network, including Will Barney's photo, biography, and link to his website, www.enochgs.com. Please welcome back every other week our good friend, the very knowledgeable and very plugged in Mr. Will Barney.
Hi, John. So good to be with you.
Always good to see you, Will. Thank you so much for sharing your most valuable thing we have, and that is time. So thank you very much for being here. Before, I've got a few topics, as always, that I'd like to have you weigh in on. But before I get to those questions, you're on the pulse of so much of what's going on. What got your attention in the last 2 weeks since you've been on the GFR? What would you like to share with us?
Well, it's been quite exciting if you look at the current developments going on with the Iran conflict. The Iran war, which is, I don't know if you could call it a war, it's been so one-sided. It was more of a straightening out the bully scenario. But it's been fascinating. We thought we would be at a deal as of today, and or we would be back to bombing. President Trump has issued some mercy yesterday. He did not put a timeline as to how long he would extend a ceasefire, but he's giving them time to come together, because what you have happening is so much of their leadership has been decapitated essentially by missile strikes, that they're having some deliberations, if you will. And that's probably a nice way of putting it, as to who's going to be in charge, and that they need to come to some consensus. If it wasn't for Pakistan, I think, reaching out to the U.S. and asking for a little bit of time to sort this out internally, because they're trying to figure out who's going to run the country. They've had 2, perhaps 3 layers now of leadership eliminated, and now we're getting to some people that are being a little more reasonable about this. The challenge that Iran is facing is with the blockade that's in place. Their income is cut off, $400 million a day cut off from the country. And it's getting to the point where the government cannot even pay their people anymore. We're hearing that they're having payroll problems this week because the money's been cut off. The oil is stacking up in their storage tanks, and it's soon to be completely full. This is a problem for Iran, because when the tanks get full, they have to start shutting down the wells. When you shut down the oil wells, you start to get other issues that come into that problem, where brackish water and other things starts to infiltrate the well. And there are some cases where a well cannot even be properly restarted once it's shut down. So Iran is under a clock. And the clock is, are they going to lose the assets that they have financially, such as the oil wells, over this deliberation, or are they going to come to the table and strike a deal with Donald Trump? Now, this is played out very interesting for the Iranians as well as the rest of the world, as you're seeing a complete reordering of the global energy structure of the world. Last week, it was announced 120 empty major tankers were on their way to the U.S. to fill up with oil from the United States. So whereas the Middle East, it was the central, or was for a central portion of oil supply for a lot of the world, they're now looking to the Western Hemisphere to pick up that oil, which is restructuring all of that. Of course, oil is being supplied from Venezuela, as well as the United States, to fill those vessels. So this is interesting, because not only has each of the steps that Donald Trump's made eliminated these communist regimes, such as Venezuela, such as Iran. Now there's currently deliberations going on with Cuba as well. But this has put direct pressure upon one of the biggest communist regimes, which is the CCP of China. It has exposed China and their own weakness in that they do not have their own oil. They're completely dependent on the world. And as Donald Trump is eliminating these other communistic regimes, the godless societies, their access to easy and cheap oil is going away. And now they're having to come to the Americans and say, can we buy from you? And what does America say?
How about that?
You sure can. Pay us in US dollars. So it's blowing up this whole idea that China had of the BRICS taking over full control and being the reserve currency of the world. Now that the world's seen that China doesn't have the stability of energy, it likely won't ever be the reserve currency. So it's reordering this entire structure of the world and what perhaps BRICS wanted versus what's actually going to take place.
Great analysis. I've been waiting for that sort of analysis on the economic impact of the redistribution and control of that strait, and you just laid it down. And that was a plan more than likely years in the making, and being executed relatively swiftly when one looks at the magnitude of the events that we did in Venezuela and that we're doing right now in the Straits. I picked up a report, Will, that the United Arab Emirates has led them to seek emergency U.S. dollar as a backstop as a result of some of these issues. Do you have any information about that, or is this the first time you're hearing it as well?
Well, that just barely broke that story that
Yes.
there's a concern about getting enough U.S. dollars. Iraq is not getting any U.S. dollars at the present moment, and they're trying to transition to hopefully being independent from U.S. dollars. But there's a real problem going on here. All these countries that are headed to the U.S. and, like I said, 120 vessels, 67 of those were the 2 million barrel sized vessels, so the big ones. What does that mean? It means you have a lot of the world struggling for oil. The U.S. what are they doing? Donald Trump just signed in the last couple of days another executive order opening additional capacity using the Defense Production Act to streamline more oil access, more wells, more leases, bring everything online. He's trying to really turn up the spigot in terms of oil capacity in the United States. And this is going to counter what you're seeing, because everybody's screaming about high oil prices, high gasoline prices. How are we going to even get our fuels? There are countries where lines are stacking up at the fueling stations where people are having a hard time. I'm not sure what it's like in Thailand where you're at the present moment, but there are many countries where it's getting more difficult to even get the fuels just because of this disruption of the Middle East. So
Well, to that
this
point,
is fascinating. Go ahead.
yes, to that point, that those disruptions you've defined have happened here in Thailand. It seems to settle down a little bit. I'm not following it, so I don't know where they went and got their next round of oil from. But the stations were shut down; they were empty. There were huge lines. Farmers didn't have fuel and diesel for their tractors. The common folk couldn't, get around. The local uh, equivalent of taxi drivers. Suffering because the prices were jacked up, and the tourists left because of the flight disruptions for a period of time when bombs were disruptive in Middle Eastern exchange airports. So yeah, no, it impacted Thailand. I think we're on the other. I'm not sure, but I believe we're on the other side of that to an extent. You talked about the price of oil. I want to talk about that for a minute. Currently, I think oil's at about what, $90 a barrel, something in that range. President Trump
I
has
think the Brent's
stated
about
in
98
simple,
today. So yeah.
almost 100. Okay. Yeah. So we're still up there at a high oil price, but that's to be expected due to the circumstances. And the president himself has put out memes, posts on X and Truth Social saying, it's a little bit of a price to pay for a little bit of time as a sacrifice of what we've got to ultimately accomplish in this. My question, having laid that down, is what's your view? When do you see oil dropping to the level that the president would really like to see it at once we get past this mission? And where do you see oil settling down? 30 a barrel, 40, 50, hanging in that better range? And do you also think that if and when we get to that situation, would the massive over our whole lifetime, there's all of a sudden oil's expensive and then it's not, it's hard to get and it's expensive. Will those games end? And where will oil settle as a basic price point? I don't know if you can
Well,
answer that, but it's a question I have.
Trump's trying to end the manipulation process. The manipulation means anytime there's a crisis anywhere in the world, then the whole world jacks the price, right? Now, we saw that here in America where we don't get not even a single barrel of oil from Iran, and yet the prices go up here the same as they go up everywhere else. So is that fair? Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. So what Trump is doing, and this happened ever since this Iranian thing started, he went to Russia. Russia didn't say anything about the conflict. All they said was they gave some memorial to the Ayatollah leader, and that was it. That was all Putin said about the entire thing. He stayed out of it completely. As a consequence to that, Trump removes all the sanction on Russian oil. All the US dollar sanctions got removed off of Russian oil.
Mm-hmm.
So that opened up the oil spigots of Russia to start supplying Europe
Mm-hmm.
and other places again. This is fascinating because if you look at strategically what's happening militarily, is Russia is in conflict with Ukraine. And Russia is the primary supplier of the North, more so than Ukraine is. And what are they doing? They're fighting a communistic regime that is in Ukraine. The current Azov battalion that's in control there, they're communists. They are the original Nazis. And the same thing's happening over here in the Western Hemisphere where Trump is chasing the Nazi regimes out of there. And then he goes to Iran, which you could argue is another Nazi regime. The people don't like it. And he's taking them out as well. What is this doing? It's putting increased pressure on the remaining communistic regimes, primarily we're talking CCP. The CCP had spent the last 30 years trying to get minerals out of Africa, out of South America, take control of the Panama Canal. They thought they were going to be the dominant power, and now they've been exposed as being completely dependent upon the world because they don't have oil themselves. And now Trump has them against the ropes. They're completely against the ropes. So if you think this doesn't lead eventually to even the collapse of the CCP, you'd be wrong. All of this will lead to that. Every one of these types of governmental regimes that have been running their people with control and subversive control, anti-God scenarios are all going to be eliminated. And they are being eliminated right now. CCP is in a dangerous situation. China, people complain about the U.S.'s debt levels. Oh, we're hitting 40 trillion. Well, take a look at China. It's way more than that by a long shot.
Wow.
They've got a lot more debt than we do. How are they going to sustain that when they're a country dependent on energy? So Trump is with the activation of the Defense Production Act, is increasing the energy production from America. He wants China to be dependent on America because that puts the screws to the CCP. If they've got to come here for oil, they're going to cut the deals that make sense for America. And there's no other way around this. If you look, as you look at this, and there's 5 different angles you can look at this from, there's one guy that's in the power seat, and it's Donald J. Trump.
Without question. You know, I'm taking some notes. I want to come back at you on a few things. First, a little fun. You might as well put a co-author under the name Sun Tzu on the book Art of War, and the co-author should be Donald J. Trump. The mastery of what him and his team have done here, as you just so perfectly laid out, is one for the history books, and I mean that literally. You know, I lived in China for a little over a year. Long story. People probably want to know why and how. I may have written about that in one of my books in the past, but basically, you could chew the air in China. I mean, they burn so much coal. I'm thinking about their energy crisis now with them, you know, having to change their purchasing habits of oil. Maybe they'll be burning a little extra coal, but I can tell you, the air there is. We lived in a city that. Large city, 10, 15 million, probably more, Chengdu, southwest China. And in the condo where I was at, you kept the windows closed, the air conditioner was on or whatever it was, the heat. And you could take your finger across your kitchen appliances, your top of your microwave or whatever, and just clear the pollution dust inside your dwelling. And, you know, we were in a pretty nice place. The air there is filthy. Anyway, I'm off point. You know, I ran across a report.
What city was that, by the way?
Chengdu. It's Southwest province. That's the spicy food part of China. And
I know a fellow from Australia who married a Chinese woman and lived for a period of time in China, but then was finally able to get the whole family back to Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman he married had a daughter. And by the time he was finally able to get them out of country and to Australia, the daughter's now 10 years old. It wasn't until she went to Australia that she had ever seen the stars because of the pollution there.
Well, yeah, Without
Her whole
question,
li- her
I'll
whole life,
comment
10
on
years of
that.
her life, and she had never seen the stars.
Yep.
Isn't that so phenomenal?
Yeah. It is phenomenal. Now, to use Trump's expression, which is often used by New Yorkers in the old days, in all fairness, but in all fairness to balance the ticket of the China pollution situation, if you go up to the mountains, like I was in a place called Lijiang, beautiful, beautiful country, way up in the mountains. I forget what part of China, it's many years ago. And we had sunny days. You saw blue skies. It was quite nice. But by and large, certainly all their cities, um, I I remember for weeks and weeks, maybe months, never seeing the sun. It was out. It was a sunny day per the apps and the news reports, but there was no sun to be seen anywhere due to the pollution levels. It was that bad. But anyway, I also came across a report.
Amazing.
I don't have it in front of me. Perhaps you did. If you do, please comment on it. One of the side benefits, perhaps, of the operation in the Straits of Hormuz is also well, what's on some of these vessels? And I understand there was some substance, some chemicals, something that didn't pass the test of us passing through the straits in a recent inspection of a China ship. And you think about drugs, guns, chemicals, nuclear waste material, children, and who knows what else. I'm wondering if we'll see some of that get exposed as we do this operation. Any comments
You'll
about that at all?
see more of it. What happened is you had a ship that had left Chinese ports, had made its way to the strait and was headed to Iran, and refused to acknowledge the call signal from the U.S. Navy, who were blocking the ports of
Hmm.
Iran. And they said, "You better clear out your engine room." And they sent a missile right into the ship and blew the engine room apart and disabled the ship completely. Then they brought in their guys and boarded it. What they found was the entire ship, and this is a very large tanker. Um, uh,
Hmm.
the weight of this vessel, I think, was similar to an aircraft carrier, to give you an idea. And it was loaded with chemical explosives used to make missiles on its way
There
from
you go.
China to Iran. Okay. So this has been
Big
exposed,
story.
and Donald Trump even came out and made a mention about it on Truth Social about he's going to have a conversation with China about this, particularly when he's there in a few weeks to meet with Xi. So
Yes.
this is exposing more of what's going on. If you look at Iran and their financial situation, if you were to look at what got them to where they are, how did they've been under sanctions for so many years? How did they get to a place where they could get this kind of
Right.
armament, this kind of
Hmm.
heavy industrial application of military equipment? And the reality was is they were getting money from other sources. And you could
Sure.
and if you were to dig into that, you would find a trail back to the city of London. Okay.
How about that?
So the bankers were funneling funds to Iran to build up these armaments. Why? Because they wanted that Iranian army to be their private military in case anybody tried to decapitate their financial system. Well, what do you think we're headed for right now? This system hasn't been reset in over 50 years. It's never gone this long. We talked about it in previous episodes where we are well overdue for a reset because the debt levels are so high they can't be sustained any longer. And it isn't just in the United States, it's all over the world. And so it's going to start collapsing upon itself. And so what you have happening is you have the bankers themselves funding these terroristic groups, keep everybody in the world fighting with each other, because under the fog of war, they've been very successful in past conflicts of resetting the system underneath war. And everybody wonders, why is it so difficult and so hard? Well, war is hard. Oh, everybody has to tighten the belt during wartime as if it's normal, when really they're covering up a reset of their financial system, and they were hoping they could do it again. And instead, what's happening is Trump is eliminating their ability to even wage the war. They have no cover. They have nothing to cover what's coming, which is the full exposure of the fallacy of their entire system, and it will come down. It's inevitable to come down. If you look at the bond crisis in America, everybody knows there's a massive problem waiting to explode there, and it's epic. I've looked at some of the data, and if you were to compare where we stand today in terms of economic exposure and I would say the fragile componentry of what is our financial system, and compare it to 2008 when we had a major recession and economic shift there. We had companies go out of business like Lehman and Bear Stearns. John, we're somewhere between 6 to 10 times what it was then, and worse. Okay. So when this thing lights
Yep.
up, it's not small. It's going to be massive. Now, I think that what you'll probably see from the Patriots is a push to move towards a new currency, to shift into that before this explodes, so that the country is already, at least a portion of the people are already shifted onto the new system to ease the pain that would come if the whole thing came down without a backstop. So I think you're going to see some
Yes.
moves made to maybe accelerate the launch of this new currency in an effort to try to keep us from having complete catastrophic breakdown. So it's going to be
Absolutely.
interesting to
And
see how this plays out.
without question, I have a question I'd like to ask you. I've been speaking with some of the followers of our shows, the ones that have secured a wealth coach consult with me. Just last night, I spoke with a woman, and you may not have an answer, but you'll certainly have an opinion. And I'm going to be asking this same question. It's the first time I'm asking it of Juan O'Savin and some of our military panel guests as well. But it begins with you, Will. Um, you know, first to set the stage for those newly coming aboard who may not know why I'm going to ask this question. Juan O'Savin has stated, and I'm paraphrasing, that with all we've endured in this war over these years and with what's yet to come, the biggest thing of concern is going to be in the financial arena, as you've just stated, with 6 to 10 times worse than 08, 09. So, folks, tuck those sound bites away. Here's another sound bite to tuck away. The municipal bonds, the school bonds, the cities, and all that, that's going to be, as I've come to understand, the lion's share of the crisis that's brewing, that's going to really rear its ugly head in 6 to 9 months, according to Juan, in a recent interview I did with him, in terms of the bond collapse. Now, having set the stage for those that aren't aware of that, now you are. Having said that, the question, Will, is this: state pensions. And by the way, I interrupt myself for 1 second so I don't forget. Stick around, everyone listening right now, because we're going to bring Bill Armour on in a moment. We'll do our roundtable, but we're going to hear from Ricardo Bossi, uh, retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi of Australia One in Australia. A recent interview I did with Ricardo on Bossi Briefs. And I'm going to run a minute and a half segment of which really, folks, will serve as a warning. And the key word within his message is to prepare. But will people with pensions, there's a lot of, look, pensions, I don't have the exact numbers, folks, but you would know this, Will, as well. Pensions by regulation design are required not to be in all stocks, because pensions are for folks in retirement. You have to take out the volatility of stocks by putting a blend of bonds in, whatever that is, 60-40 one way or the other, 50-50, right? But we know they're laced with lots of bonds, which was
Right.
wise under, quote, normal markets. Take the volatility out, makes consistent pay, get a decent return, keep the retirees alive. Okay. But we're not under normal times. And we've been warned significantly, some of the most powerful voices in the world, of this bond mess coming. My question to you is, using the word backstop rather, I was asked the question, hey, my state is upside down on its payments in the municipal bond area. The warning signs are out there. Well, so many retirees in America, they can't go back to work. they're not going to go back to work. And the ones that can aren't going to earn what they did. The working years are behind them. They're relying on these pensions. Everything I'm learning from folks like you and others, they could be in trouble, serious trouble. So my question to you is there a insurance policy, for lack of a better word, built into pensions of some sort in the event of a catastrophe? Is there something the president could do in the big scheme of this reset to prevent that for all our retirees in America? You may or may not have the answers, but I'm certainly curious as to your views.
It's a great question, John. And here's the problem is every one of these obligations are a contractual obligation. Each one of these bonds. You don't just unwind the contract, you have to fulfill it. Okay. What happens when they can't fulfill it? And the problem that we had is, for those that don't understand this whole bond gate issue, I'm going to try to give you the 30-second version, just the down and dirty of it. But basically, property taxes were not going into your schools. They were going into an income stream used to borrow a whole bunch of more debt that may or may not have been in your schools. Okay. That's the problem, is nobody really knows where the money went to from all these bond offerings, but they were using the property tax as the income stream to pay the payments on these bonds. The problem is the bonds and the interest rates due on those are growing at such a rate that they can't keep raising the property taxes to meet those payment demands, because the people are at a breaking point, and they're going to rebel en masse. Okay. So they can't keep going down that road. So what you're having is some of these bonds where no payments are being made, interest has accrued, and then they're trying to roll it over into a fresh new bond with the interest added to pay the old bond on top of it. So it just gets bigger, right?
Yep.
It's the snowball rolling down the hill, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And everybody's like, who's going to stop this thing? Well, it's going to crash at the end. How does this affect pensions and everything else? You have insurance companies, pension funds, 401ks, IRAs, and a variety of other retirement vehicles that are all investing in a whole portfolio mix of products. They're allowed to have a certain exposure to the market, but that's only a portion. The bonds were always considered the safety net. Slow, steady, don't pay very good, but you can rely on it and it'll always be there. Okay. That's going away. So the capability to do that is going away, because we've had people in charge of within the counties and school systems where they were taking out financial instruments, and the people that were hired into these positions were hired because of their education credentials, not because of their financial capability. And some of them may not have knowingly tried to put the county into jeopardy, but they've done so anyway. So it kind of doesn't matter whether there was competency or incompetency. The problem is the problem, and how's it going to be fixed? How do you unwind these contracts? How do you guarantee to the pension fund, the insurance company, the IRA, that they're going to get their payments based upon these bonds when they can't make the payments? Okay? These are the questions. Honestly, there's not a great way to fix this. If you look at that bond exposure in the United States and in other countries, it's all different numbers. But here in the United States, you're looking at probably a $15 trillion mess. Taking that, trying to bite that off in one chunk, I don't know where you're coming up with that, right? It's not going to happen. So that's why I said, I think that this is pushing the issue of, we need to get to financial reset. We need to get to alternative money systems sooner than later.
It's a race. It's a race.
You've had other guests on your show who talked about some gifts that are coming back to the people as part of this reset. Those gifts may be absolutely necessary because some of this other
Correct.
mess may blow up on them, and they may be the only way they survive it.
Yep.
Because I don't know how
Thanks,
you
Will. That's an
unwind the
interesting.
contract without honoring the contract.
Yeah, interesting point. So to the woman I spoke with last night, I know you're listening, and to perhaps hundreds of thousands of others with similar questions and concerns, we've got a little. I'm always looking for hope. You know, faith, hope, and love. I'm the hope guy. There's some hope right there. Depending on, I call it the race of the reset now. How can we head this off? So there's a potential situation. The other thing I wanted to ask you, I know in the 401k space, 403bs, folks that are, worked in hospitals and schools and so forth that have 403bs, self-employed people, people that worked at companies have 401ks. These type of what the IRS calls qualified money, pre-tax dollars. Those accounts, I know that, and they vary from company to company. There's the plan administrators for the company, and they choose the investment firm with which to put your money in your 401k. So those are you get three players. You got the worker investing, making the money and putting it away, the company matching perhaps, then and the plan administrator that brought in the investment house to allocate the funds, and so forth. My question there, I know in that space, most of the time, I used to be a financial advisor, so I had that on my desk quite often. Most of the time, you can contact your plan administrator and say, hey, listen, I want to reallocate within my 401k. Get me out of the stock portion and just put me in treasuries, for example, for not to earn money, but for a point of safety during a mess like today. So if you folks listening, you're in 401ks, 403bs, not giving specific investment advice, I'm explaining how the structures work. And you may have the ability to reallocate within your portfolios.
Right. And
Having said
each
that,
plan is different
I
on
think
how that's done, but there is some adjustment
absolutely,
typically in most of them.
they're all different. But my question now, Will, is this. I think I know the answer, but I never like to assume. In the state pensions, let's say, uh, do they have the ability with a state pension, not a private, to reallocate? Because there's a glimmer of hope if they can call them up and say, hey, perhaps stick me all in treasuries for a while till the storm passes. But I'm getting the feeling that that is probably not available. Do you have any insights into that?
On the state pension side, I don't know for certain what capabilities. Each of those plans are usually independently administered, and the rules of how they do the allocation are all a little bit different. So
Mhm.
you're going to have to contact
Yes.
your own plan administrator to decide what you can and can't do. The reality is people are looking
Yes.
for safety. They're trying to figure out how you get through this. And, if you went back in history and you looked at every time there was a major financial change, whether it be the collapse of Rome or any of these other periods of time, every one of them was fraught with some pretty heavy losses and hardship in that
Correct.
transition. I think that you have a
That's
group
correct.
of, I guess you could call them white hats. I believe they're good guys that are trying to help the transition along here, that I think are trying to
Mhm.
do this in a way that minimizes that turbulence as much as they can for everybody. But I don't think everything can be solved. I don't think there's any way to eliminate all risk exposure for everybody.
Mhm.
So, but as we look at that, you brought up something earlier on the screen in your monologue, and that was a press release on the 26th of March by the Treasury stating there was new currency that was going to be issued with the president's signature on it, and Scott Besant's signature. I've read that article. I went through it 3 times. I cannot find the words
Mhm.
Federal Reserve in there anywhere.
That's right.
So that's
That's your
that's
calm.
a pretty good indication that they're working on this. They're trying to get this done.
They are.
If we might hit the wall on the bond crisis in 6 to 9 months, maybe they're trying to get us ahead of that. If
Yes.
you can take the country and put them through, give them a new currency, give them a chance to exchange and reposition themselves during that period of time, by the time this blows up, they're in a much better situation to handle any turbulence that may come from a collapsing system if you've set them up to have a future. And Is that the plan? Is that what they're going to? I can't tell you for sure that's what they're doing because they're not consulting with me. But I can
Mm.
tell you that when we
Sure.
see them making moves like this and putting out
Mhm.
information like this, it means they've got a plan in place. And I think that they're trying to get us through this the best way that could be done.
I agree, Will. A couple of quick comments, and again, folks, we're going to bring on Ricardo Bosi clip after we talk with Bill Armour, who's standing by. A couple of quick comments before we segue out of this is so to our audience, I just want to say this because chaos without clarity and uh, problems without solutions is not what we're about. And so we're in a pickle here, for lack of a better word, a rock and a hard place with regards to things we cannot control. Right. So what I say in the state pension side of things, all those that are worried about that because of the narrative that's created out there now for the obvious reasons of concern, contact your state, figure that out, go online, do your own homework, get some skin in the game. It's your retirement, and find out if you have the ability to reallocate your pension funds. Not to get out of it, you can't. You wouldn't want to. You have nothing to get out of. You only have rights to the income. But find out if you can reallocate. That's something you might want to do. Now, real quickly, to all those that aren't in state-run pensions, you've got your own 401ks, your IRAs, various plans like that, or non-IRA assets. There, it's much easier. And at the end of this broadcast, as I do every broadcast, I'm going to give you 5 specific resources, education, tools, and avenues to get out of the system because there you can take control. And boy, you better, because if you don't, somebody else will. I want to ask one more question of you, Will, before we bring on Bill Armour. Uh, any quick updates on the Jerome Powell exiting situation? The, some are speculating the collapse will come before he exits, so we can blame it on him. And there's all kinds of narratives out there. I'm not quite sure that will happen in that sequence. But any updates on Powell exiting and Wash coming in?
Well, you had Kevin Walsh had hearings yesterday within the Senate Banking Committee where they grilled him for a good part of the day.
Sure they did.
And
Yeah.
they wanted to make sure he would be an independent voice and all of this crazy stuff, right?
Yeah, like we've
So
had one for the last 100 years.
I can tell you that these appointments that are usually approved by the Senate never go as fast as you want them to. Ideally, he would be approved and be ready to step into that position on the 15th of May when Jerome Powell is supposed to actually leave. However, there's a lot of indication here that that confirmation may not come till the middle of June, a whole month later, in which case Jerome Powell would remain in the position until that confirmation's finished. So that would be fascinating. I will say this about Jerome Powell. He was appointed by Trump in his first term. He has continued to do everything exactly as Trump said he would do it, be too little, too late. He's done a fantastic job of completely obliterating any sense of reputation that the Fed may have had. And we can thank him for a job well done. Thank you, Jerome. If Jerome was really fighting a battle against Donald Trump, he would have made moves to make the Federal Reserve look like the good guys, lower the rates sooner or whatever, to change that perspective. But instead, he's continued to play this out the way Donald Trump said he would play it out. And everybody thinks they're still fighting with each other. What you're watching is the demolition program. They're just trying to make sure it doesn't demolish too quickly. You know, it would be catastrophic if somebody just flipped a switch. Let's say the 4th of July comes and new currency's issued and we have big announcements. Okay, I'm just playing a little bit of what if here for a second. So if that were to occur, and on the very same day, you grab that lever and you just shut down the Federal Reserve, it would be catastrophic. Why? Because every truck, making a delivery to your local convenience store, the grocery store, the gasoline to the gas stations. Every one of those trucks is delivering product based upon a credit line. And guess what? That credit line is based upon a banking system tied into the Federal Reserve. You cannot shut that off without putting the entire country into, within 72 hours, it would be pandemonium, riots in the streets. Okay. If that were to occur. So what's likely to happen is the Treasury issues its own currency, comes out with announcements, its own currency, and the two exist side by side for a period of time to allow people to make
Correct. I think that's where
exchanges
we're heading.
and do what they need to do to move over. And in the end, it's going to be like the landline telephone. It's going to disappear because people are happier with a cell phone. And I think that you'll see the same thing with the new financial system. I think the adoption will come fairly rapidly.
That was very well said, and I think that resonates quite well with our audience, and it's also comforting. And I think that's probably exactly how this may very well play out. It leads me to I had a question strewn in there that came up, and I've lost it. But oh yeah, back to Powell for a moment, and then we're going to bring on Bill Armour. May 15th, he's supposed to step down. If he doesn't step down, two-part question. I'm not saying this would be a strategy that would be of interest to us. Perhaps it would, perhaps it would not. So, two-part question. Does the president have the ability to fire the Federal Reserve chairman? And if he does fire him, if he can and does, now we don't have a Fed chair because we got to wait for Wash to play out in June or July or whatever. Any comments about those potentialities, if there are even possibilities?
Well, they've tossed around this idea that if he doesn't leave by the 15th, Trump could just fire him. In which case, what he would appoint an interim or a acting chairman in the interim.
Yes, there you go.
Any of those are possibilities. That acting could be Kevin Walsh himself. He could technically do that as an acting person, right? Until he's appointed, he could do that. Any of those things are available. Is he going to do that? I don't know. To me, it looks like Jerome Powell has played this exactly the way Donald Trump wanted him to play it. And I don't think Donald Trump is as angry with the guy as he's saying. Now, Donald Trump's still going on with, they spent billions on this building, and that doesn't make any sense, right? This building in D.C.
Yes,
all of that is about destroying the reputation of the Fed as being smart money managers, as being the people that can really get us where we need to go financially. They are literally trying to take the sleepers and give them a dose of reality that you've been following a bunch of crooks anyway the entire time. And so I think if this plays out just a little longer, it'll be a little more of that narrative, I expect, that will continue.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Will. Please stand by in the digital green room. I'm going to have you join Bill Armour and I in just a moment to comment on Ricardo Bossi's words, which I think everyone's going to want to listen to. So my next guest brings on a wealth of knowledge and expertise concerning the economy and precious metals. He is my highly recommended resource for your gold and silver acquisitions inside or outside of your IRA and your qualified plans. Visit again, jmcbroadcasting.com, click on contributors up top, scroll down. You will see Bill Armour, his biography, and a link into his world so you can reach out to Bill. Please welcome back Bill Armour.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I have a couple of pointed questions that are on my mind, perhaps on the mind of a lot of our viewers. But before I get to them, anything you'd like to report on that you've seen take place, whether it's in the precious metals field, the economy at large, since you were on the show last?
Yeah, what I really would love to do is talk a little bit, because I know Juan has talked about, 80 times worse than '08. And obviously you guys were just talking a little more about the muni bonds and the implication there. What I would love to do is explain some of the numbers here so that people can actually hear the scale when we talk about this, of how that's even possible. What does that even look like? So if I may, we can just kind of take a trip in the Wayback Machine. It's 2007. Market is hitting all-time highs. If you bought a house in the last couple of years, it's probably doubled. I mean, everything is going swimmingly. And to the average American, you might have looked at that economy and thought, this is incredible. This is awesome. Everything's just going peachy keen. And if you looked a little bit underneath the hood, so to speak, you might have seen a couple things, if you really understood the numbers, that would have given you cause for concern. What you would have seen was that about $2 trillion every day overnight, it's called the repo market. All that means, just for in layman's terms here, is that there is $2 trillion in 2008 overnight that's going from banks or other places to people to make bets essentially on the treasury market every day. And that's just commonplace. $2 trillion is being floated in about 24-hour loans. And you might have said, well, that's kind of a lot of money, but it was fine because, what could possibly go wrong? It's not like the collateral was good. It was perfect. There was no issues there, except until it wasn't. And again, for scale here, it was about $35 billion of what ended up being toxic mortgage-backed securities, $35 billion of bad assets that drove, $2 trillion built on 35 billion. So, it's maybe 2 or 3% there versus the 97% that's then traded off that. That was the collateral, about 35 billion of bad assets. And that was the cause here that caused Bear Stearns to fail, that caused the entire world here, the entire financial world to come to its knees off of really $35 billion of bad loans. So not that much in the scale of the numbers we talk about. You can look at the national debt, 40 trillion. I mean, there's huge numbers we can talk about, but it was really just, it started kind of if you think of a house of cards or just at the very bottom there, it was all held up by just a small fraction of that being bad. Okay, now moving forward to today, where are we at today? Overnight repo market is about 12 trillion. So it's about 6 times what it was in 08. So already you say, wow, that's a pretty significant difference. I mean, we're 6 times the level we were in 08. And if you think of, well, what is the potential here? What could potentially be toxic? Well, obviously, as Juan has talked about, as we've all talked about here many times, you look at muni bonds. Muni bonds represent about 4.5 trillion, give or take. And that's what's recorded. Obviously, it could be higher, but let's say 4.5 trillion. Let's just take the recorded number, $4.5 trillion. Let's say only 10% is fraudulent. Let's just say let's go really conservative. And you've got people like Nick Shirley that are finding fraud everywhere and, Doge, et cetera. So I think 10% is laughably conservative, but let's just say only 10%. So 450 billion. Remember before it was just 2%, 3%, 35 billion against, 2.5 trillion. So just a couple percent there. This is now 450 billion versus 12 trillion. So a much bigger lion's share there of this treasury market here that is used as collateral. So you've got, let's just say again, 10%, 450 billion of toxic assets there. Now, the scale, again, that's being traded is just astronomical, this overnight repo market. So what happens is overnight or, over the course of some period, investigative journalists or whatever, this eventually comes to light. This 10% of this is fraud. And that would be kind of the spark here. All of a sudden, that 12 trillion, then even funds that are potentially levered beyond that, start to become toxic. Just as that 450 billion is toxic, it cascades all the way down. And now we're looking not at, a 2008. We're talking about, again, the scale of that being 5-6 times and then levered another, 10, 15 times beyond that. You do the math there, we're up to almost 80 times the scale of a 2008. And so if just a minor $35 billion was enough to shake to its core the foundations of this country's economy, what does 450 billion conservatively, if we trust that only 10% of that is fraudulent, conservatively, what does that do to the global outlook here? We're now at a point where world banks are connected in a way they never have been before. 2008, you saw other countries failing because of what happened here. What happens now when we're even more interconnected? You see a worldwide recession, the likes of which we've never seen. And the point I'm trying to drive home is it doesn't take this massive amount of fraud. We're talking about just 10% of munis being bad as the basis of this is enough to create this cascade. If it's more, it's worse. If it's less, it's still really bad. And so kind of just to draw this out one more time, the fraud's exposed, the confidence collapses, prices fall fast. lenders stop taking the muni bonds, so they demand that liquidity back. That's just greater collateral, so there's forced selling again, and it's kind of this snowball effect. And all of a sudden, they have to liquidate everything. That's real estate, that's stocks, that's bonds, and the whole market is sent into this frenzy of forced selling. And you end up in a position where we find ourselves in kind of a nuclear wasteland, metaphorically speaking, as far as the economy is concerned. And so if you're looking at this, and the only question that really a person should be asking themselves if they're deciding, how serious is this issue, is how much trust do you actually have in the authenticity of things like the municipal bond system, when people like Will Barney and Juan O'Savin have made the brilliant points that they have, and we're exposing fraud at the levels we are, what confidence do you actually have in these systems? And if the answer is not 100% confidence, then you need to be doing some serious soul searching, I would argue, in how you are set up, because all it takes is a small portion of that being toxic to radiate to the rest of the financial world.
What a great analysis, Bill. Thank you very much. And I hope everyone was listening very closely. We should cut that to my producer and run it as a standalone issue later on. To bring in the numbers again, which Bill, Will, and Juan and others have talked about, it's 6 to 10 times worse for the reasons stated than '08, or 60 to 80% more carnage per one. So that's what's coming, folks. Again, what we can't control, like Will and I spoke about, on perhaps can't control on the state pensions, let's say, but all the other assets that one can control, it's time to control them. And again, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on, and we'll talk about that in a moment. I want to make an announcement to my producer. Make a note, text me that you're confirming this right now, please. Juan O'Savin is hosting a bond event. I forget what he calls it. I want the image, the name, the registration, and everything. And I want to start to put that out on our shows here. It'll be sold out for sure. Juan will be there. His chief of staff, retired Lieutenant Colonel Matt Meck, will be there. And many other notable and names that you may not know, but have extraordinary value in this area. And the whole thing, Bill, is focused on bonds, focused on what you've just laid out for everybody here. So I encourage my producer to get me the data. Let's get it out there and publish to everybody. Perhaps they can attend or follow up on it. If one's going to have it streamed or recorded, I don't know. I have to call them. But big issue here, folks. But again, my philosophy is very simple. If it's something I cannot control, I don't focus on it, because that's just going to lead me to fear and worry. And if it's something I cannot fix, I'm just not going there. That's faith, prayer, and trust in the plan, ultimately, that we'll get through this perhaps with not as much carnage for ourselves. But the things that we can control, all you got to do is look in the mirror. If you get caught in this is the reset. We are in the transition of it. This is the danger zone. Until we get on the other side that Will Barney spoke about earlier, the new currency backed by such and such, dual currencies till the Fed completely demolishes itself, and so forth and so on. You have nobody to blame but yourself if you do not take the proactive, positive steps today. And I'm going to cover it again we have one break at the end, after the commercial break, which is just an announcement of value to you. It's not a product to sell. I will come back and lay down 5 very specific things, educational and action, that you can and should be considering to do. But while I've got Bill Armour on the screen, talk about the importance of gold and silver as an antidote, a solution, and a pretty big solution during, not forever, during these years of transition, and during this generational explosive move in gold and silver.
Yeah,
Set the stage for those that are newly aboard on why that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as people hear the severity of this problem, the obvious next question is, well, what can I do about that? And the answer is, don't play in the sandbox, that has this issue, right? No one is forcing. I was just talking to someone about this earlier today. Is no one, is forcing people here to stay in these types of assets if they don't want to, right? You have the ability, the free will here to put yourself in an advantageous, not even just a safer position, but an advantageous position as you come into knowledge and understanding. And that's, I think, the key point here is people need to come and learn and start to gain knowledge of what is going on. And then the obvious next step there is just make a lateral transition. I always talk to people about how gold and silver is not necessarily something you have to marry. What it is it's a vehicle that takes you kind of like you've come to a river, and there's no way. Your car is not going to get you through that river. The water is far too deep. You're going to have to find another way. And that is the beauty here of gold and silver. Through 4,000 plus years, gold and silver has retained its value. There has been no point, no currency, nothing that has ever destroyed gold's value. Its intrinsic value has never gone away. Silver, in the same way, but now even on a secondary tailwind here, also has the manufacturing.
Yep.
So you've got the built-in worst case scenario that you're utilizing the intrinsic protection of metals that we've got for thousands of years. And on the best case, we move into a manufacturing boom once this is all over. And I do believe that we get through this and actually that we come out stronger for it. It's just bumpy in the meantime here. Mm-hmm. But when we get to that point, you have the added benefit of owning something that is going to be incredibly necessary in the manufacturing boom. So you position yourself here to survive and then thrive throughout. And I know that that's really the context of this whole show is surviving and thriving throughout this transition. And we find ourselves in such a key point here where people have that opportunity, where the flood has not begun yet. If you can get yourself positioned on the arc, you can take advantage of what many people have already done. A year ago, people have gotten into metals. They're looking at their portfolios right now. They're up, 50 to 150%, depending on where they got in. And that's a brilliant feeling, because not only did you manage to get up 100% or 80%, whatever that might be, but you did it while being secure, while being safe, and not having to worry about when this is all going to come tumbling down. So having the peace of mind, being prudent, doing your research, key elements of making smart decisions.
Thank you. Very important historical and present information. Pardon me for not being able to quote the Bible as much as I'd like to, but what is that quote in the Bible that speaks about a wise man sees danger and so forth? I'm sure you know that.
Yeah.
Can you share that
Yeah,
with us?
runs. Yeah, absolutely.
Biblical,
A wise man
biblical.
sees danger.
Let's bring that in.
Yeah, absolutely. A wise man sees danger and runs, sees danger and runs, while a fool, continues a fool is separated here. A fool stays. So being able to see the danger and make a smart decision, I think, and you say this all the time, and I appreciate it, that knowledge is power, but wisdom is knowledge in action. So being able to take what you know and put that into practice is such a key thing. So many people will hear, and this is biblical as well, many people will hear, but few will listen. And so I hear, I see that in this world, is people will oftentimes hear this message, they'll agree with this message, and then they'll kind of go back to their everyday lives. I'll share a quick little story here that, I once, when I was working at a church, I shared this to the from the pulpit, and that is called the duck church. A few ducks, imagine here, they all went to duck church, and the duck pastor was standing up there preaching, and he was saying, "Ducks, we can fly." And they loved that, and they went crazy. He said, "Ducks, we can fly." And they went crazy, and they sang their duck hymns about how they could fly. And when the service was all over and they were all, hugging and had finished praying, they left the church and they walked out and not fly, they walked. And I think that that's prudent here and accurate here, is that we have to take action. We can't just hear, we have to take action and be resourceful.
Yes, thank you. Saving America is not a spectator sport, and protecting and preserving your assets during this danger zone, temporary as it is, but it's a bit prolonged, is also not a spectator sport. And I want two quick comments I'd like to lay down here, and then we're going to see a clip from President Trump, and then we're going to listen to a clip from Ricardo Bossi, and then have Will Barney join Bill and I for a discussion. But before we go there, back to gold. Gold is God's money, gold and silver. It's got the 4,000, 6,000 year history as well. And lastly, those that follow the Intel military board, the 17th letter of the alphabet, the greatest open source military intelligence operation of our time, those drops, They said gold will destroy the Fed. Having said that, let's run this clip to my producer, something that Will Barney sent me a week ago, published by Donald Trump. Thank you for doing a three-panel. I would like Bill and Will to weigh in on what you make of that clip. I'll refrain from sharing my views until you gentlemen share yours. And then we're going to hear from Ricardo Bossi and have this panel weigh in. Thanks, Will, for standing by. Will, what's your take on that clip? You're actually the gentleman who sent me the clip, posted by President Donald J. Trump. What do you make of that?
Yeah, so Trump posted this with the title 1929. 1929 is when we had the Great Depression occur. This was supposed to be a view of people walking down the street of New York. Now, it's been colorized. It originally was black and white, but it's been colorized to give you a little more of a modern take on it. But the people are walking around as if everything's perfectly fine and is perfectly normal and everything's great and everything's going to be fine. And then at the end, you see them lining up as if they're in a soup line. Okay. He gives no explanation. Trump just posts the video. It's 1929. But we need to be wise enough to say, you know what? When the president is showing us a video of everybody walking around like, oh, everything's going to be okay. It's perfectly fine. And then they line up at the end into a soup line. There's a problem. We need to be paying attention to it. And I love what you and Bill just talked about. Thank you, Bill, for talking about a call to action. If we don't do something, we're not going to be able to be in a position of control to get through this. And we need to do something about the situation. So I find it fascinating when our commander-in-chief and president shares things like this, because it's a heads up for those that are paying attention.
I agree. Thanks, Will. And that's my analysis of that short clip from the president. That some of the public have been saying to me, oh, I don't see that as a soup line or whatever. Well, you know what? See it as you want to see it. But 1929, no matter what you read into the imagery and the happy music and the well-dressed people getting through life, if you don't see that as a soup line, that's okay. It says 1929. Bill, what's your take on your analysis of that video?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, I always joke with people because they'll say, how'd you know this was going to happen? I say, my superpower is just taking Trump at his word. And that, tends to work out pretty well because the man does follow through with what he says. And so when I see something like that, what that tells me is it's kind of the coded warning. And he does this all the time where he'll put something out. And if you understand and you're willing to listen, and I think that's biblical. I mean, that's what Jesus Christ did with parables, right? To the Pharisees, it was nonsense. But to the people who had ears to listen, who had been shown the way, that made sense to them. And I think that this is sort of the same idea there, that if you are someone who is able to listen, that can or hear or see, and you're not blinded by your own bias or this or that, you can actually start to understand that Trump is giving the warnings, saying these things are, we need to watch out for this and prepare. And so I think, even if it's just little things like the gold trim, across the White House, things of that nature, they're constantly giving signs. And I think Trump is so good about that if you are willing to listen.
Great points. Hey, Bill Armour just mentioned Christ and Trump in the same sentence. Oh my goodness. You know where I'm going with that from the recent operation that succeeded, as we now taking a closer look at the Pope in the Vatican. I want to run this clip To our viewers that are newly joining us, certainly those that follow us religiously, first of all, thank you very much for following us and sharing our work at JMC Broadcasting. But every other Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, I sit down with Ricardo Bosi on the show titled Bosi Briefs. Popular show. We spend usually 90 minutes covering the events of the past 2 weeks, not just economic, in fact, rarely economic, most of the other issues. But I asked Ricardo in the current broadcast a bit about the economy. I wanted him to weigh in. I'm not running the entire clip. I'm going to run a portion of it. Let's run this quick clip and then have our panel weigh in. The big crash is closer than you may think. Trump will be universally blamed. Financial systems will implode. People will lose money. Corporations will go out of business. Certain cities, as Juan O'Savin has indicated, due to the bond debacle, will collapse. And some people may not get paid in pensions and perhaps other things. Stocks, investments, and pensions may be wiped out, varying degrees. Living standards for a period of time may plummet. Supply infrastructure will break down. Digital IDs, CBCs, UBI, and rationing will be implemented shortly after a brutal period of inactivity. Now, there's some potential bad that I just laid out. We're going to go into potential good that follows that. But I'd like you to weigh in on what I just commented upon, especially coming off the heels of a 1929 clear calm from President Trump by publishing that. That coupled with what I just said, what's your feedback on those subjects?
Yeah, that's an interesting summary that you've put into the bad category. I can actually identify most of that as pretty good. And people look at me and go, "You heartless bastard." No, not at all. Point number one, we've been telling people for years, prepare. And preparation is it's just insurance. Am I concerned if my car's damaged or written off in an accident? No, why? Because it's insured. If it wasn't insured, I'd be driving like a turtle to ensure safety. But I can live my life because the car's insured. As a metaphor, so to speak, right? Okay, so if you're prepared, now this comes down to self-reliance. Whose job is it to make sure that you've got money in the bank or you've got wealth? Yours. Whose job is it to have food in the pantry? Yours. Whose job is it to keep you healthy? Yours. But unfortunately, the whole world on this simple concept of self-reliance is let's trust government. Government will provide everything. No, just no. Now, let's get to somewhere that's really going to hurt people and say, well, how can you say that? Well, how about this? Your stocks and bonds will be worth nothing. That's not fair. That's my money. I worked for it. I invested it. Okay. Let's say that the underlying business model that has provided you a very comfortable return on your investment over many years has been draining the blood out of tortured children and shipping it overseas. And that's the business model that has pumped up your portfolio. I think there's a term called proceeds of crime. You don't get to keep it. So if your stock portfolio is predicated on a bunch of companies controlled by BlackRock, etc., and their corrupt practices produce proceeds of crime, then that money ain't yours anyway. It's corrupted money. It's blood money. So if it disappears, tough. Take it up with your corporation. Don't take it up with the sheriff that cleaned out the town, that cleaned out the crooked mine owner, the crooked brothel owner, the crooked pub owner. No. So you will lose money because guess what? It's proceeds of crime. Another example, the Masonic filth that runs most of the planet, certainly runs all of Australia. These people have houses and wealth and beyond your imagination. They're going to lose it all. They will lose it all. Proceeds of crime. Very simple. Oh, but you can't do that. Yeah, you can. Yes, you bloody can. And that's what's going to happen. And on top of that, excuse me. So pick a high-ranking member of the judiciary who's on the bench, can't be challenged. Well, guess what, mate? Every cent you've earned proceeds of crime. So you, your bride, and your children will be going down to the local social security office or whatever you call it in your country, and you'll be drawing a stipend like everybody else because your properties are now gone. Now, what happens when all these properties come on the market? Because the whole bloody country is propped up on this. The price of the local housing is going to drop like a stone. Now, the overpriced ones, and we've been saying this for years, nothing new. The hopelessly overpriced properties, because that's the way they do it. They pump up the prices so they can claim whatever they can claim on it. they'll drop simply because the real value will now be paramount. The housing prices that are not overly inflated, they won't drop by much. They'll hold their value. It's just the inflated prices of real estate, for example, that will crash.
All right. Well, thank you for running that clip, and thank you, Ricardo Bossi. Some pretty disruptive, uncomfortable truths. We'll go with Will Barney. Will, what's your feedback and comments on what you just heard from Ricardo Bossi, particularly the term proceeds of crime?
I think, look, Rick is spot on what he's talking about here. The reality is we've had an entire system ginned up that is full of corruption from top to bottom. And when it's not transparent, those of you that are investing in these various stocks, you don't think you're investing into anything nefarious. It's not like it's your fault necessarily. However, it doesn't matter whether you knew or you didn't. If it gets involved in crime, it can be confiscated. And those are the risks that we take when we hand our money to Wall Street. We had Paul Atkins, the head of the SEC, say on more than one occasion, I've heard him say it publicly probably 5 or 6 times now, within the next 24 months, the entire stock market will be tokenized. He's talking about bringing that onto blockchain. When that happens, it brings the entire system into full transparency. Talk about clarity. We're waiting for a Clarity Act to be passed. This is like bringing the stock market into full clarity. You can't do any of the nefarious, crazy stuff that was happening before because now it's all on full display and it's full transparency. So we'll get there. But the difference is between now and there could be some real corrective moves because there could be some values that are massively inflated that are just not real whatsoever. So I think until we get a system that has that kind of transparency, that kind of clarity for everyone involved, you have to understand you don't clean up the filth and it not be messy. It's just, you're going to get dirty when you start cleaning this stuff up, and that's going to affect everybody. And as I said before, we may need to get this transition started just to help us get through what's coming. Because if we don't, it could be very difficult for people to survive economically beyond this. We really need to get a safety net in place so that the collapse isn't all catastrophic. It is doable and livable. And I do hope the White Hats are headed in that direction for us.
Thank you, Will. Bill, any comments on proceeds of crime and what you heard from retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi?
Yeah, it brings to mind, there's a verse that says, treasures of wickedness profit nothing, but righteousness delivers from death. And as he was talking, that just kind of came to me. All of this fraudulent wealth that's been created, or not even just fraudulent, it's crime, right? It's been evil. It's been generated through insidious means, will be taken. And that's just, right? That is actual justice that is being doled out. And so if you're an average person, and I really appreciate what Will said there, which is obviously you're not, most people don't know, don't have the time or the thought process of what their money is doing. They kind of they give it to someone, and that money manager is going to do what they're going to do with it. And that's really the end of where that conversation stops internally, I think, for most people. So I don't blame people in that sense, except beyond that as you become, we talk about knowledge again, as you become aware of that, what do you do with that information? If I were to tell you that, hey, your money is funding, slavery, murder, etc., across the world, and you do nothing about that, now all of a sudden you do bear some responsibility in that sense. So I think it's a good thing. I think that he's absolutely right that some of this wealth redistribution, it's funny, generally we talk about that as obviously an awful thing, but this is one where it's a positive thing. We're taking it away from wicked, evil people, and it is being doled back to true, red-blooded, I wouldn't even just say Americans, but human beings that care about this world and this country, and don't, operate in this network of evil.
Now the people are learning, some of us already knew, of what you two gentlemen just commented off the heels of Ricardo Bossi. So I'll go back to you paraphrasing my quote. I'll put it out here applicable right now. Now you know, knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is wisdom. As we wrap up our segment with our panel in a moment, run a quick clip. I'll be back with 5 action items, but I do want to say right now, it's time to get out of the system. One of the common themes that's resonating with me as a result of all of the talking points from Will and Bill in this last hour and a half, the theme seems to be this is the transition of the global financial reset. And in this transition, as Will said, if you spill on line 7, aisle 7, there's a spill, and the guy comes with the mop, it's going to get messy cleaning up the spill. So this is the transition where there's going to be a lot of messes, and there are things we can control, things we cannot control. As Will's alluded to, we hope the white hats have some protection for us on the things we cannot control. And so get out of the system. I'm going to talk about that, 4 buckets and 5 other different things in just a moment. But I want to say this, and Bill will rather comment on it real quick, then we'll conclude this segment. I'm not talking about, when I say get out of the system, go to my message box, DM me. I've got get your QFS account set up with me. Do you have your QFS account set up? What say you, Will Barney, about that? Because I got someone I grew up with in high school actually sent me a text, found me or whatever, and said, hey, I sent $78,000 to one of these scam artists saying, come to me in my QFS. Guy went to contact him back. Guy's gone, and so is his $78,000. What do you say about this, Will Barney, as a word of caution to everybody out there?
Well, in the last 2 weeks, John, I have seen fake posts put in comment sections on your channel and my channel, pretending I had somebody coming on my channel, pretending to be you, trying to convince people to open up their QFS account. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Not us, guys. Not us.
And I know, and there's been others that have put comments on my own channel pretending to be me too, right? Saying the same thing. First of all, there is no QFS account for any of you to get to. The scams are at epic levels right now. You cannot go sign up for some QFS account. When we get to the point where they introduced this new currency and we get new digital accounts, we don't know if it's going to be called QFS. Nobody does.
Correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's just the nickname people are giving this right now. Okay. So for those of you that are listening, please listen to this. I know of gentlemen that signed up for one of these QFS accounts. Within 36 hours, they had connected his crypto account to stake his crypto, that he would be given all this money. Within 36 hours, they emptied his entire wallet.
Mm-hmm.
And he had well over $40,000 in there. It was gone. Mm-hmm. And by the time he saw it, it was gone. There was no way to find it. I don't want this to happen to anybody else, Absolutely. But it is happening. So please, people out there, do not sign up for this. You've got to take care of yourself, full responsibility in doing what you can do. That's why I love what Bill Armour, look, what you're doing, Bill, in helping people get physical metal, hold it in their hands, put it in their own safe, whatever, but have it in their possession. You know what you have, and that will survive this transition. And I think it's something everybody needs to seriously look at, is what can I do now today that I think will get me through this and to the other side. If you don't have money to invest, but maybe you have a little money, your first priority might be buy food. It may not be gold or silver. Okay. Yeah. It might be that you just need to eat. And if that's your situation, our hearts and prayers are with you. Okay. So don't misunderstand this. I don't want anybody acting in a level of fear that they're going to miss out or that they're going to lose something. You should always take action based upon knowledge and based upon the peace that you feel in your heart when you have that discussion with your creator about what you should do about your situation. Listen to that. It's rarely wrong.
Perfect. Thank you. And coattail off of what you said just now about those that may not necessarily have assets to invest. You know, preparedness module available for everyone for free at wealthcoachuniversity.com. There are 10 video modules that walk us through how to get out of the system. One of those modules is preparedness, and it works for everyone, whether you have assets to protect or not. I encourage everyone to go take a look at it. They're short modules. I don't know how long it is. Could be maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Also, to those that do not have any assets to protect, and we understand why. I mean, the fact that anyone has been able to accumulate any assets in the system that's designed to make sure you don't through taxes and inflation and everything else, hats off to you. What a miracle. But now you have a responsibility to keep it. I think it was Ralph Waldo Emerson who said, takes a great deal of caution and a great effort to create a great fortune. But once you have it, it requires 10 times as much effort to keep it. And that's where we are. And particularly right now, again, the theme of this show turns out to be surviving the transition, and you actually can. So those that do not have assets to protect, remember what Will alluded to earlier from a previous guest I've had on, Rob Cunningham, Captain Rob, retired Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox, to name a few. The repatriation of wealth is coming in some fashion at some point, and you will be included in that. So there is always hope. Bill, as we close out, your final words, and to what Will was just saying, Bill is a critical component, a great resource. Gold and silver is the critical component. Bill is a great resource to get you there. Inside the IRA or outside the IRA. If you have the 401ks and the 403bs, you can act 9 times out of 10. If when talking separate from state pensions, we covered that earlier. So everything else, IRA or non-IRA, you can own gold and or silver, but it's a buyer beware market. This is the gentleman I trust. Bill, talk with us a little bit about how people can access you, your phone number, your website, and what the process is when they do reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, the best way to reach me is my direct number, and this is not to some phone bank or anything like that. This is my personal number, and that's on the screen right there. That's 310-407-0239. Obviously, I'm on the phones during the day, so I don't always get it right when it rings. But as anyone can tell you, I get right back to people just as soon as I can with a phone call. They can also go to jmcgenesismetals.com. Submit your information through there. Again, it'll come right to me, and I can shoot you an email or whatever contact method is preferable to you. And the first step always, as we've mentioned multiple times here, is just information. Is this something that you can do? What might that look like? And just investigating that. And then from there, and I appreciate what Will said, is bring that to your creator, right? Is pray on that, sort of meditate on these different options, and you can go from there. It's not the kind of thing where you're getting on the phone with someone like myself or me in this case, and I'm driving someone to do something they're not ready to do. I had a gentleman just the other day who had finished up. We'd gone over everything, and that was kind of he obviously needed some time to think about it. And I said, have a great day then. And he paused and he said, "Wait a minute, Bill, is that it?" And I thought to myself, I think so. What else can I help you with? And he said, no, I was expecting the hard sell and it never came. And certainly that's just a tenet here, a core tenet of the way that I approach is educate people and enable people to make what is generally a pretty big change, and a difficult change, but a necessary change, I think, for a lot of people. So 310-407-0239, best way to get me, and I would absolutely love to chat and help anyone with this transition.
Thank you, and so much needed. Thank you very much, and also for sharing that customer story. Let's see. There's one other point I wanted to make. I've lost it. But anyway, thank you very much, Bill Armour. And, you know, we're speaking about action. It's another theme in here. What good is it? You know, this isn't a television show for entertainment. You know, this is important messaging from my guests on this broadcast and all the broadcast and military panels as well. Will Barney, why don't you share with us, because many folks know of you. They know of the great work you're doing, enochgs.com. But a lot of folks newly are coming aboard. We had 4 million new viewers or new views, additional views to our already increasing platform of viewership. So a lot of eyes and ears are on us. So there's undoubtedly a lot of new people here. Give us a cursory view of what Enoch GS is doing and how people might be able to reach out to you now and or later.
EnochGS.com stands for Enoch Global Services, and we provide business helps and strategy to get humanitarian projects off the ground and launched as a business. And so we're putting together software and hardware structuring right now. We're building out a system that we think can allow for the launch of thousands of projects per year at the conclusion of this, and to keep up with those on an ongoing basis. It's a very energetic plan that we have, but we're trying to help humanitarians that are trying to change the world and to take that idea that they have, that thing that they want to do, and turn that into an actual business that can fulfill that goal that they have, that dream that they have of blessing the world in some unique way. So that's what we do. We're here to help all humanitarians, and even those that just want to join in it. We will be having in the future, there'll be an employment portal that'll be going up on the website, and those that even just want to work in some of these humanitarian projects and help make that a reality. There's going to be many opportunities because we will need great and talented people to work in those capacities too. So it's not just for the entrepreneurs. This is also for everybody that wants to have a job and work in a field that they feel like they're doing something meaningful in their community and in their country. So a lot of great things coming that we hope to get accomplished over the next many years. And we appreciate all of you in joining with us in this endeavor to bless the world with your product, your service, your technology, and even your idea of what you want to do to make it better. And we're with you. We want to be here to build heaven on earth. The name of our company has Enoch in it. That is intentional. Enoch was the 4th great-grandson of Adam. And as such, he built a great city that was taken up into heaven in righteousness. And his descendant, Methuselah, of course, the grandfather of Noah, helped to get humanity through the flood. So it is important that we use that because we're here to rebuild. We're here to do the work of building heaven on earth, and we think it can be done when we all work together. And we appreciate all of you that are joining with us on that journey. And it's going to be fun. I think it should be fulfilling. And we do hope that we can be of help to you. So if you're a humanitarian, you're struggling, you're like, how do I get this whole thing off the ground? We're going to have the tools and the people to help you get through that process.
Great vision, great important work, and part of our future. This is what the future is going to look like in the golden age. People helping people. I hate to keep it as simple as that, but that's kind of what it boils down to. And so those that have plans for the future, connect up with enochgs.com. Those that are prepared today, connect up just the same. So thank you very much, Will Barney and Bill Armour. These are two great resources for our viewers. Again, action, contact Will, contact Bill. And I'm going to be back in a moment with a message from Dan Scavino and other people to contact and 5 resources for you. Thank you, gentlemen, very, very much for being here and providing such great value to everyone listening all over the world. I'll be right back.
Retirees require income that keeps pace with inflation, income that is guaranteed and cannot be outlived. In Module 4 of the Wealth Coach University, you will learn how to secure not a maybe fluctuating income stream, but rather the income stream you need and want by design. Knowledge is key. Applied knowledge is wisdom. Take the first step and avail yourself the Module 4. Got questions? Schedule your Wealth Coach consult with John Michael Chambers. Maintaining the lifestyle you desire requires due diligence and action on your behalf.
Hello, this is John Michael Chambers. Many people lost faith, trust, and confidence in Wall Street, the banks, and financial advisors. Learn how you can secure a guaranteed income that you can never outlive. Better a little caution than a great regret. Check out Module 4 at wealthcoachuniversity.com, and I do look forward to speaking with you. It's time. It's time for me to put my eyeglasses back on. Thank you for staying with me if you're still here. Dan Scavino, there are many dedicated people in government who could leave tomorrow and earn tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a month as so-called influencers on social media, but they chose to serve the American people instead. All while the so-called influencers talk shit all day long and get paid big money for clicks and impressions. We see you. That's a warning, and you know who you are. All right, chaos without clarity, problems without solutions. Steer clear from disruptive, fear-porn podcasters. Use discernment and choose wisely. Action changes things. As I said before, saving America and saving your finances is not a spectator sport. You must do something. First step is acquiring knowledge and surrounding yourself with a team of like-minded people who understand the times in which we live, that have expertise in the area you need help in. Action item 1, visit wealthcoachuniversity.com. 10 free video modules helping you to understand the situation and just how to get out of the system. Goots, get out of the system. Library of videos there as well. wealthcoachuniversity.com. Number 2, JMC Broadcasting. If you visit JMC Broadcasting, Library of Truth, on the navigation bar, click on Library of Truth, click on the Economic tab, and there'll be a hosting of many different economic documentaries and important broadcasts from other entities other than myself and my contributors. Valuable information, jmcbroadcasting.com. Click on Library of Truth. Action item number 3, Brandon Clark, not here with us today, but I'll be launching a series, a curriculum series of special broadcasts on how, for those in retirement, it's very niche focused, those in retirement looking for guaranteed income that you can't outlive, those in retirement that are looking for safe alternatives to market exposure without the downside risk. And all the fine print gets highlighted so you can make informed decisions. Those people close to retirement. This is Brandon Clark, the income retirement planning specialist. triadretire.com. You see it up on the screen. Reach out to Brandon, mention my name, and get ready for the series that Brandon and I are about to launch, a special broadcast curriculum series of deep education to help everyone secure income and safe investments in retirement. And of course, Bill Armour, Acquiring Gold and Silver. Reach out to Bill Armour. We've covered that on the gold and silver, and Will Barney, EnochGS.com. Lastly, you can reach out to me as a promotional commercial, if you will, introduce you to. I can serve as a wealth coach. I used to be a financial advisor. Now I'm a recovering financial advisor. But I was a financial advisor, licensed in dozens of states, 6 independent offices in 3 states, as I recall. And I resigned from that and transitioned to practice back in about 08, 09. I can put that financial advisor hat on without giving the advice, but I can be available for you as a coach and a consultant, putting on the hat I wear today, understanding all the issues of the day, and putting on the hat of analysis from being a financial advisor, knowing what goes on the other side of the aisle there. So I'm available on a very limited basis as a private wealth coach consult for you. This is for the folks that's got a lot going on and need some help. You can secure an hour with me or a 3 or 5 hour block. Visit wealthcoachuniversity.com. And there's a mechanism that'll take you there and get you on my calendar, and you and I will meet on a private Zoom on camera or audio if you choose for the time you've secured, and I will help you. and I will also fast track you to my resource network. So those are some action items, some pointers towards education. And again, chaos without clarity, problems without solutions is fear porn. Change the channel. Change the channel, because Dan Scavino looks like they're going to be changing the channel for us on a lot of these things as time goes by. So that's pretty much it. Rob Cunningham, Captain Rob, another great action item. Come join us. It's coming up next week, April 30th, 8 p.m. Eastern, in our private Zoom room for 1 solid hour. Sole purpose, answer your questions. Get up close with Rob Cunningham and myself. Visit jmcbroadcasting.com. You got to click on Premium Portal to learn about it. And if it's for you, we look forward to seeing you there. And if it's not, please sign up for our free subscription. See what the benefits are there at jmcbroadcasting.com. And I'll close out where I started. Saving America and protecting your wealth is not spectator sports. This book before you on the screen provides for you sort of a roadmap of how to do this, how to get out of the system. Pick up a copy of the book, and in doing so, of course, I'm the author of it, and sharing revenues with publishers, I get some of that contribution to the purchase of the book, and it helps us as well. So good information for you. Check it out. See if it's for you. And that's a wrap here. I want to thank Will Barney, Bill Armour, my producers, and most importantly, each and every one of you listening right now. Our viewership has now moved from the 10 million a month level of views to 14 million. That's because of you, and that's because of my great guests and the messaging and the information and the resources and the deciphering the deceptions and all the things we do in our military panels and this economic show. Thank you for sharing it. Where we go one, we go all. Stay safe, everyone, and may God be with you.